Chapter 23 The Treasures of Crysin. The first thing Jayden noticed was that he was not breathing. The next was that he was in his own bedroom at Crysin Castle, and everything was upside down. It was strangely disconcerting to look directly at the top of the canopy, which covered the four-post bed, and see the little balls of lint and dust that had built up. Below that, Spirion was pacing back and forth, while Sidra and Quanda sat together on a cushioned bench, talking too low for him to hear. Slumped in the corner, on a wooden fold-out cot, was a sight that brought a smile to his face. "Matthias?" His friend looked older, though part of it could have been the dull gray light that was everywhere. Matthias had always been thin, but he was almost transparent now. He was transparent. Then it struck him how similar things looked to Benwi Druania, the strange spirit realm where the Drokalfar went when they passed from the world of the living. Without the help of magic, though, that place should only be accessible in the afterlife. "Hello? Sidra? Matthias?" His shouts echoed back at him. The strange acoustics also reminded him of the unseen world to which the terrifying Magharine had sent him. He waved his arms in a futile effort to gain the attention of his friends, until a stranger in glowing white walked into the room. The man had a long face, with deep, sad eyes. No one noticed him enter, which seemed odd. The fellow watched the pacing wizard curiously for a moment, before turning his unblinking eyes up to Jayden.
"Ah, there you are, your highness,"
he said in a monotone bass voice.
"We thought for a moment you would not be joining us, but here you are, aren't you?"
"Who are you?" Jayden asked the upside-down man.
"I am Trachion. In life I was the faithful servant of your ancestor, Gregor Ryanthorn."
"In life?" A sharp chill began at the top of his spine. "What are you saying?" But he knew. No one had given him a magic pill this time. He was here because he had not survived his injuries. He had managed to reach Eriden, but not alive. The chill worked its way down his spine and wormed around in his gut. Why is everything upside down? Trachion spun nonchalantly in the air, landing right side up in front of him.
"Because we are standing on the ceiling. Come, your highness. There are spirits here who would reunite with you."
After instructing Jayden to stand on his hands and push himself down to the floor, Trachion led them to the door. "Wait." Stopping in front of Sidra, he took a long last look at her face. She appeared happy as she spoke to her grandfather, smiling as though everything was perfectly normal. Matthias was sleeping. He wanted so badly to speak to his old friend again, to hear how he had managed to survive what had to have been a series of horrible ordeals inside the city walls. He wanted to speak with them all and discover what circumstances had brought them together here. Looking to the bed, he saw himself lying still. It was unfair to come through so much only to have it all end here, where it should be just beginning. The sight of his own body made him nauseous for some reason. Everything spun for a moment. Thinking back, he tried to remember what had transpired before he had found himself in the spirit realm. "There was a dream," he mumbled aloud. He had been flying with his father's sword in his hand toward a clump of puffy clouds that vaguely resembled Grislin's face. What he was going to do when he reached them had been unclear. His momentum took him straight through their center, and he came out on the other side where he was greeted by the unobstructed brilliance of the sun. Warmth had filled him, lulling him into a catatonic state as a pulsating wave of heat ran back and forth the length of his body. He had succumbed to the feeling willingly, allowing it to overtake him and lead him here? The few corpses he had seen in his lifetime were pale, with their eyes open. His complexion appeared normal, and his eyes were closed. Looking closely, he could swear he saw the covers rise slightly and then fall back down. "Did you see that? I think I'm still breathing. Are you sure I'm dead?" Trachion's smile was sympathetic.
"I have been asked that question many times, my lord. The fact that you are here is proof. I will check if you wish."
He knelt by the side of the bed and peered closely at Jayden's body. A look of astonishment crossed his face.
"This is most unusual."
"What is?"
"We must seek guidance on this matter at once. Please come with me."
Jayden followed him through the door and down the steps that led from his room at the top of the northeasternmost tower, wishing that he would move faster. They weaved their way through the mostly deserted halls of the castle to the Court of Flames, where the only inhabitants were in gleaming white. A man with long hair and a golden beard was speaking to a small crowd of spirits when they entered. All conversation halted as they came through the little side door. The looks on the faces of the men and women ranged from surprise to consternation to shock. The golden-haired man bowed his head solemnly. "Welcome, Jayden," he said. "Forgive us if we do not seem happy to have you with us. We are, of course. It's only much hope for the future of the living dies with you." "You are Gregor Ryanthorn. I recognize you from the statues and from the stories. You were the first king of the Ryanthorns." A man in the front of the crowd grunted. "At least his wits didn't die with him." "Grodin, you survived." "So to speak," the gleaming warrior replied wryly. Surrounding him were 5 warriors from Benwi Druania. The Natiran woman, Fani, appraised Jayden with the same wicked grin he remembered from their first meeting, while Harster's inadvertently menacing smile was tinged with sympathy. The remaining members of the party from beneath the mountain consisted of the stern Rosian, Jordan, and 2 Natiran men whose names he had not learned at their first meeting. "What are you all doing here?" he asked curiously. Grodin cast a sideways glance to Gregor. "The Drokol Far are in great danger," said his ancestor. "The wizard is gathering an army to march on Druania as we speak. And precious little we can do about it, stuck here as we are," Grodin growled. "Every passage into the mountain is packed with demons. We can't even get close enough to warn the witch. They have 2 weeks, 3 at most, before the caverns are swarming with trolls and imps, not to mention demons that will be hungry to give them an unfriendly welcome to the afterlife." "There is slim hope," Gregor agreed, "but enough of what is beyond our control." He managed a small smile for Jayden. "I imagine you would like to see your family." "They are here?" "Of course. They are preoccupied at the moment, but will return shortly." "There is a pressing issue with the boy," Trachyon interjected. It was then that Jayden's head began to spin out of control. The room and everyone in it blurred out of focus. He could hear fragments of voices but could not see. "Still alive. Altered the alignment of his... She had no right." Jayden opened his eyes and found that he was lying in his bed. He bolted upright. "The Drokol Far are in danger," he shouted to a startled Spirion. "Where is Eckenroy?" "He is at the east gate. You have been asleep for 2 days. You must have been dreaming." "It was no dream. I can't explain it right now. Grisland is gathering an army to assault Druania. We are the only ones who can warn them." The others were staring at him with worried expressions. He returned their looks of concern with a reassuring smile, and noticed suddenly that there was no pain at all in his ribs. He probed the spot where his wound had been. Nothing. "You can thank your friend for that," said Spirion. "It turns out that he has more skill at healing than I have ever laid claim to." The wizard twirled his short black goatee, the look on his face clearly indicating that he was impressed, and somewhat bewildered that anyone could do something better than he could. A grin blossomed on Jayden's face when he caught Matthias's eye. "Thanks for saving me. Again." "It sounds like this time we might be even, from everything I've heard," replied Matthias, running a hand through his curly blonde hair. "Either way, it's good to see you." "Likewise. And it is certainly good to be seen as who I really am." His eyes were as sharp as they had always been, even brimming with the residue of sleep, and his awkward, one-sided smile made Jayden feel 14 again. The sight of his old friend helped ease the ache of coming so close to seeing his parents, though he had a feeling he might have the chance again. There would be time to catch up with Matthias and analyze the strange dream that was more than a dream, soon, he hoped. He shared a serious moment with Sidra next, unsure how to voice the appreciation he felt with mere words. The time she had spent in his tent, holding his hand, giving him hope, providing a link to reality and the world of the living, had saved his life as surely as Matthias's gift had. "Thank you for being there," he said simply. "Thank you for not leaving us, Highness," she replied. They continued to make eye contact until Quandus finally cleared his throat. "And thank you, of course," Jayden said awkwardly. "Thank you all." The old man's eyes were blue, at least, but still seemed to see things inside of him that were hidden from even himself. "What is happening at the East Gate?" he asked Spirion, suddenly more than willing to cut the reunion short.
"Merc has left Celis and is on his way here with his army," Spirion informed him. "Gustavus is on his tail."
So he wasn't surrounded after all.
"He was, but somehow his forces broke free. Word must have finally reached him of what happened here. He has no choice now but to lay siege to us, and swiftly. The East Gate has been repaired. Eckenroy plans to hold out against him until Gustavus arrives."
"How long until he reaches us?"
"A few hours at most."
"Then we have to get down there."
The wizard eyed him shrewdly. "If anyone is capable of defending the city against a larger force, it is Eckenroy."
"Of course, but my presence—"
"No."
Everyone looked to Quandus, whose eyes had gone white in just the little time since Jayden had looked away from him.
"First, you must touch the stone."
Spirion looked as if he had just eaten something that he was thinking about spitting back up.
"Impossible. He does not have the sword."
Quandus eyed him coolly.
"He must touch the thing anyway."
"Why?"
This time, the swift transition back to blue happened even as they watched.
"By my beard, I haven't the foggiest,"
the prophet said as breathlessly as if he had just run up a flight of stairs. Just as Spirion appeared on the edge of a full-blown tirade, he surprised them all by taking a deep breath, exhaling, and agreeing to follow the prophet's advice. It was almost as strange to watch as the transition of Quandus's eyes. Jayden quickly devoured the tray of cheese and crackers that was sitting on his nightstand, and a short time later they found themselves descending into the lower levels of the inner keep, en route to finding the Stone of Fire. He still had no idea what to expect when he touched it. Spirion explained as they went that Urion's sword, which could be anywhere, was an heirloom that had historically been used as some sort of buffer to protect the Ryanthorn line from the initial force of the stone's magic. It was clear that the wizard still wanted to make at least some effort to search for it, but it was equally clear that the prophet was having none of it, and for some inexplicable reason, Spirion was allowing Quandus to have the final say. The presence of his friends gave Jayden strength as they made their way down the wide set of white marble stairs that led to the lower levels. Sidra had to know as little about magic as he did, Matthias probably not much more unless it had to do with mending, and yet neither of them had batted an eyelash at the prospect of following him into the depths of the castle to find the mysterious stone that was his birthright. If they could be strong, then so could he. A guard was posted at the entrance to the first basement, which housed private conference rooms, a secure war room, and an armory on one side of a long corridor, with servant quarters and a kitchen on the other. Jayden had seen the man at the practice yard in Mora, a talkative fellow with a quick smile. He was not smiling now. The guard knelt formally at their approach. "Rise, soldier," said Jayden as pleasantly as he could. "The thoughts protect us. How fares the day?"
"Well, Highness," came the guard's hollow reply.
"It does not sound that way. Why are you here guarding the basements instead of at the gates?"
"Forgive me, Highness. I have been placed in charge of the refugees. It has been a struggle to maintain order."
"How many refugees are there?" Jayden asked, excited at the prospect of saving more lives. The guard stared dumbly, looking to Spirion for help.
"Many of the citizens were rounded up and imprisoned by Merc's men," said the wizard. "Some he used as hostages. The others—"
"But how many are down here?"
"We're not sure, Highness," the guard said hesitantly. "No one has been able to get an accurate count."
"Open the doors, so I can see for myself." The guard knocked once, 3 times quickly, and once again. The bolt was drawn back from inside, and the big double doors opened to reveal a scene of organized chaos. Men and women who had accompanied the troops from Mora were darting in and out of openings all along the main hall with trays of dishes and armloads of linens. There were dark circles under their eyes as they moved with a sense of determination. Soldiers accompanied them here and there, most of them too old or too young for battle, though the place had the feel of its own kind of battlefield. Servant and soldier alike stopped what they were doing and bowed as Jayden and his companions started down the hall. Whispers preceded their footsteps and followed them as they passed. Left and right, every room they peered into was packed near to overflowing with refugees. Hastily constructed wooden pens lined every wall, hemming them in to the point that nearly all movement was restricted, and there were occasionally forms that did not stir at all. Jayden paused before a private conference room that he knew all too well. It was here that Grislin had murdered his father, and set a group of perfidious guardsmen upon him and his mother unarmed. Eckenroy eventually rescued them from the wizard's men, but, just as they were about to escape into the city through a hidden passage, a cave-in caused by the attack on the castle claimed the life of his mother. The nightmarish past seemed almost tame in comparison to the gruesome reality of the present. "There must be hundreds."
"Thousands,"
said a nearby woman with a touch of gray in her tangled hair. It was obvious that she had not slept in some time.
"If I may, Your Highness, the lower basements are worse, and more have been arriving every hour." "We cannot—"
A small sob racked her, but she forced it down and continued.
"We cannot continue like this." "The stone comes first,"
said Quandus breathlessly behind him.
"Before the people of Crysin?"
he replied, spinning angrily.
"Yes."
Jayden had to take a very deep breath to regain his composure. "Let's make this quick," he said finally. "Where is the stone?"
"In the 4th basement," replied Spirion.
"4th basement? There are only 3.
"I will lead you to the 4th, as it was I who disguised its whereabouts in the first place."
The 2nd basement was indeed worse than the first. A horrible stench of unwashed bodies and human excrement assaulted them as they descended the round stairwell at the end of the first hall. Rooms that were once filled with extra stores for the inhabitants of the city were now worse than prisons for the refugees. Here and there someone would babble insanely. Others laughed maniacally in denial of the illusion around them. Some simply cried, but most were long past that. Jayden quickly decided to look at the floor as he walked, concentrating only on putting one foot in front of the other. Thankfully, the second hall came to an end, and they went down the next set of steps. Glancing at his companions, he could see that they were all as relieved as he was to be leaving the 2nd basement. That was, until they came to the 3rd. The odor of feces and unwashed bodies was nothing to the stench of death. He gagged as they rounded the last turn and the full force of the smell hit him. The moans from the woebegone specimens of humanity who had somehow survived were haunting. The 3rd basement had once been home to the treasures of Eriden, the remnants of which now littered the hallway, broken fragments of priceless artifacts they had to step over or around. They held their noses and tried not to let their eyes wander as they rushed quickly to the end of the 3rd hall, which stopped abruptly at an enormous statue of Halyan Ryanthorn. The statue was the only thing in the vast hall that was not in pieces or marked with graffiti, the Irnori mercenaries having looted, smashed, or otherwise defiled everything else. Halyan stood watching defiantly, as he always had, his hands resting atop the hilt of the sword, with the point of the blade balanced on the floor between his feet. The expression on the statue's face was grim, as Jayden was sure it would be on the man himself if Halyan were here now. He could only imagine the horror that Crysin's founder would feel at the atrocities that had transpired in the castle that he had built for his wife.
"Stay back," Spirion cautioned. "The entrance is well guarded."
Jayden believed him, having been warned from an early age that death awaited anyone who dared to touch the statue. The wizard took a deep breath and closed his eyes, only to open them a moment later, perplexed.
"Someone has been here who should not. My safeguards have been neutralized."
"Grislin,"
said Quandus.
"He would have needed help."
"He had it. Open it, Spirion. The time is now,"
the prophet told him in a strangely detached voice.
"We must be careful. Whoever bypassed the traps may have left a nasty surprise or two of their own to keep us out."
"You must open it now, my son."
"How dare you!"
"Forgive us. There is no time."
Before the wizard could stop him, the old man reached out with both hands and took hold of the crossguard on the hilt of the stone sword, twisting counterclockwise. A small section of wall next to the statue swung inward on hidden hinges. The wizard looked at Quandus as if he had never seen him before. He was not the only one.
"Grandfather?" "I will explain later, child. Will you show us the way, please?"
he asked Spirion. Jayden could tell that no one but he and Spirion had noticed the little door, which had apparently been shrouded in an illusion. He took Sidra and Matthias's hands in his own. They gasped as the opening materialized before their eyes. A moment later, the wizard took hold of Quandus's hand. The prophet smiled as the door was revealed to him as well.
"Ah, there it is."
Quandus entered first, before Spirion could object, ducking to avoid the low stone casing. Spirion followed hesitantly, with a shrewd look to the rest of them that indicated they should be on their guard. With a reassuring nod to Sidra and Matthias, Jayden crossed the threshold himself. Red light immediately enveloped him, bathing the narrow, sloped tunnel in a deep glow. A familiar sensation tugged at the back of his mind. Something ahead beckoned him, something that he wanted more than anything in the world. Before he knew it, he was on Spirion's heels, wishing that the wizard would move out of his way. He started to reach out to push him to the side before he realized what he was doing and froze. The memory of the little cave behind the waterfall in Druania suddenly surfaced. He stood panting.
"Are you all right?"
Sidra asked from behind.
"I think so."
The desire to push on had not diminished, but at least he had become consciously aware of it. He pressed his hands against the side of his head, fighting the overwhelming urge to rush forward.
"Pardon me,"
Matthias said politely as he slipped past Sidra. Frowning, the young mender reached forth his hands.
"Let me see."
Jayden pushed his friend's hands away stubbornly, but the wiry young man slipped them quickly over his temples. Pressing firmly, he massaged in a circular motion. A feeling of relaxation washed over Jayden, loosening every muscle in his body. He had the momentary sensation that a rope had been connected to the very top of his head, his entire frame dangling from it in perfect harmony and balance. When Matthias removed his hands, the unexplained drive to reach his goal was muted, controllable. He sighed contentedly.
"Thank you.
I didn't know you could be so forceful." Matthias blushed.
"It is my training,"
he explained modestly.
"We are taught that when a patient—"
"Are you three coming, or would you like us to bring the stone to you?"
Spirion interrupted harshly from up ahead, ending the moment. They caught up to the wizard and the prophet just as the hallway rounded a sharp corner and opened into a large hexagonal chamber that proved to be the source of the intense red light. The treasures of Crysin, Jayden discovered, had not all been taken or destroyed. Lining the walls of the chamber were piles of gold coins, gems, and artifacts that had not been appropriated by the invaders. Grisland, assuming it was the wizard who had gotten past Spirion's defenses, would most likely have wanted to keep the stash a secret from the mercenaries who followed him. Placed atop a small rock pillar in the center of the room was the most alluring of all Crysin's treasures.
"Your Highness, I present to you Thera, the Stone of Fire."
Shaped like the chamber that housed it, the stone resembled a massive ruby roughly the size of a fist. It was alive with an inner brilliance that drew all eyes to its core, and a presence that made everything else in the room feel small and insignificant. Jayden wanted to dive inside of it. Nothing existed for him at that moment but the stone. Forcing himself to approach slowly, he reached out his palm.
"Wait. Did anyone else hear that?"
The last thing Jayden wanted to do was wait, but, with a tremendous amount of willpower, he did as instructed. A low growl emanated from the back of the chamber. From the shadows stepped a four-legged, skeletal abomination, with a wide skull and gaping jaws full of jagged, broken teeth. It stood waist-high and resembled a large cat with the skin and meat all stripped away. Watching the intruders intently, it crouched as if preparing to pounce.
"I told you we should be cautious," Spirion whispered. "Do not take your eyes off it. Everyone back up very, very slowly."
"What is it?" "In life it was a grimoire,"
Quandus said sadly. To the surprise of all, the prophet calmly approached the nightmarish creature with an outstretched palm.
"Reticia, Gigi, Reticia,"
he said in a commanding tone. The creature began to whine, and then slowly backed away and lay down. To everyone's horror, the old man knelt and began stroking the bleached skull. After a few moments, the skeleton nuzzled his hand, emitting a low purr.
"They are beautiful creatures, fiercely independent, deadly on the prowl, but surprisingly gentle, even playful. The fact that Grisland would do this proves that he is beyond redemption. Matthias, could you put her down, please? She is in great pain. Move slowly. She will not attack you now."
Matthias stepped forward carefully and placed his hands on the skeleton. His eyebrows shot up in surprise.
"This should not be."
There was a sharp snap, followed by a short whimper, and the bones of the creature broke apart, turning to dust as they hit the floor. Quandus rose from his knee with assistance from Matthias. Spirion was looking at him strangely.
"The grimoire were extinct even before I was born," he said bluntly. "They were bred to protect a people who lived long before my time. You have seen them, frozen in time in a basement in the Temple of the Prophet. You may have even read about them in various texts. But you commanded the beast in a language that has been dead for thousands of years."
"Do not start with me, wizard,"
Quandus said with a hint of his old temper.
"I am not—"
For a moment the old man almost reverted to his previous routine of denial, but settled instead on crossing his arms and sulking.
"It was that book. There are memories in my head that I did not put there."
"I knew the last prophet, Boreas Gathon, and you are nothing like him. He listened to the thoughts and struggled to interpret their wishes, whereas you behave as though our course should be obvious."
"Is it not obvious?"
said Quandus, clearly annoyed with the wizard's line of thought.
"It does not take a prophet to know that the boy is supposed to touch the stone."
Reminded of why they were there, everyone refocused their attention on Jayden, who had been fighting against his desire to reach out and cradle the stone in his palm since even before the grimoire appeared. Thera, Quandus had called it. Thera. The name tickled his mind like the soft whisper of a woman's voice, teasing his senses and giving him chills. Like a feather down his spine, it paralyzed him with a feeling on the edge of ecstasy. The presence that emanated from inside was distinctly feminine, and it was calling to him, seducing. Thera. While he could not decipher actual words, the stone was nonetheless conveying feelings in a way that set his cheeks on fire. Images of girls he had kissed, whose bodies he had explored, there were not many, flashed unbidden into his head. He remembered Carolel, the beautiful princess of North Calas, when she had exposed herself to him. He fidgeted as the warmth moved down to his groin, and he began to feel extremely uncomfortable. Images of Sidra came next, followed by visions of private desires that hovered in his subconscious, but that he had considered himself too noble to explore. The stone was drawing on his innermost passions, forcing him to acknowledge feelings that he had suppressed. It felt like he was being tested in some indecipherable way. He felt remorse at first for the lustful yearnings he had toward the young woman he had developed so much respect for, longings he had pushed away so that he could focus on his goals. A torrent of guilt washed over him, threatening to drown him in a well of shame he had built around himself. Then he latched on to the image of Sidra as he truly saw her, the core of who she was. Kind, honest, beautiful, fierce, intriguing, and, yes, arousing. He gasped. Looking down, he saw that the gem was in his hand. He had expected to be assaulted by something, but nothing had happened aside from a slight tingle that passed from his own body into the stone. It was the same sensation he had felt when a sea of screams washed down from above, thousands of voices crying out in terror.